Welcome back, folks. This is where we left off last time. We ended the episode with the death in part 9, so we're going to come back to this and get this done. So, be prepared, but the actual thing about it is we don't actually complete World 5 in this episode. I was kind of hoping that we would, but there's more stuff to do here. So, yep, this is going to be longer than the first Donkey Kong Country, and with this episode, this is officially as long as the first one was. So yeah, this is clearly the longer game, even though they both have 6 worlds. I mean, there's actually, I don't really count the final world just because it only has one stage in it and then a boss fight. But I do count the Lost World as a world. So basically 7.5 worlds, but it's still longer than Donkey Kong Country 1. So I'm just kind of, at leisure picking up the complete bonuses for this. So there's going to be a couple stages you're not going to actually see in the total package, but you're basically getting pretty much over 85% of the content. You're basically not getting like 3 Lost World stages and then the final boss fight, but, So I'll try to get the 3rd Lost World stage, though. I mean, you basically have to get all the coins to be able to do that, and I think I'm probably going to be like a few shy, but it just depends. I was playing through World 6 just like 15 minutes ago, and that world really pissed me off. I was just trying to get to a save point because I knew it would be a bastard. I mean, sometimes when playing this game, if you're watching this with me, just understand that, if you're watching this new with me and you don't know what to expect, just understand that they will not always put the save point after like the first or second stage. So if there's like 5 or 6 stages, just understand you're going to have to play the game a bit. The first Donkey Kong Country really pissed me off with that, and the snow world, how you had to beat like 5 stages to get to a save point. But this game doesn't do it as terrible as that game did. But yeah, just understand it's selective about throwing in save points. So you want to make sure when you do attempt this game that you're in the mood to play it for a duration, because there's some tricky stuff that if you die, you're going back to your last save spot. So you definitely want to get those coins. I don't get them because I know this game, but don't pass banana coins if you see them. I would recommend, especially if you are completely new to this game. But so, yep, it's September. This is typically one of my favorite months of the year, and if you're in the southern hemisphere and watching this, it's like spring almost right now, but for us it's autumn. September 21st marks the first day of autumn. I typically like this time of year. It's just very creepy. It's kind of like with this world right here is how autumn, you should know the seasons by this point, but I just have fun. I really come alive at this time of year, so my pheromones come out. So this kind of this purple parrot right here has a name. I didn't know it when I was growing up, but they later on gave it an actual name. Like the green bird has a name, but all of the characters have names, but I just don't think because the purple parrot was very distinct that they ever bothered to give it a name, but it has one now. I actually don't know if it was the developer of this game that gave it. It might have just been Nintendo, so the Rareware did it, but so yeah, the thing that pisses me off that I'm starting to notice about this game is the hitbox is a little bit more delicate than what you might like to think. It really kind of is not quite as fastened as I would like to say. This is very touchy, so it is something that gets on my nerves, but I'm just not used to it. For some reason, I'm just used to different games where the hitbox is a little bit more liberal with that sort of stuff, and this is kind of, but typically, not too many people are going to complain about the controls in Donkey Kong Country 2, but there's just something about like the aerial controls. Like there's a stage in World 6 where you have to float through the stage because it's windy, and you have to know the controls for that, and I really don't like them because they're so delicate. They of course put the bees in the stage, and just the slightest brush that you get near them and they count that as a hit. So between the parrot controls and the floating, when you're floating through the air controls, are not the most spot on. I mean, you can chalk this up to my error, but I'm just warning you that it's touchy. So it's like right there, you know. So I always try to make sure that Diddy is the first character I use, just because Dixie is probably, I mean, if you really struggle with the game, you want to use Dixie second, just so you have a little bit more of a handicap to help you. So, but she makes this game so much easier. I mean, I'll tell you, if the second character did not have the hair technique like Dixie did, this would probably be a way tougher game. I would just have to admit, there'd be tons of stages that would piss me off. I mean, Dixie really, I'm glad that they, I mean, and all it took, I mean, Dixie Kong could have been like a lesbian character or something and had her head shaved, and, you know, we wouldn't have this technique. I mean, Diddy Kong's girlfriend, I mean, Nintendo could have went the extra step and had her be bisexual, and then we wouldn't have had this technique. Something to think about. I'm sure I'm the first one to have noticed that in this game for you, so give props to me for that, but it's kind of the thing, so. Yep, this is the final B stage in the game, so if you hate these stages, you're not going to see them anymore after this, but it was just kind of interesting that this one showed up. It doesn't really fit with the theme of it, but I kind of liked how it was still there. It's just kind of awkward. But, yeah, so this is a stage when I was growing up I really had difficulty with. I mean, I pretty much breezed through it this time, but it was kind of a bastard when I was like 6, 7, 8. So I have had this game since it basically came out, but I actually haven't had the third one. I did not get Donkey Kong Country 3. So I did rent it though. I did beat that game through a rental mostly. I didn't get it 100%, but I did get to the final boss and beat him. You're gonna be mostly, for the vast majority of this stage, you're gonna be the spider, so let's get ready for that. Hopefully you know the controls of him by this point. I mean, really, the thing about it is they do not really use the animal buddies that much. I mean, they introduce them, but for the majority of the game, they're just like the rhinoceros is really only in about 3 stages. I mean, he shows up like maybe 4 times, but considering there's like 50 stages, you know, 4 stages where you play as these characters, and I know that they had to divvy up, like there's like 4 or 5 animal buddies in this that they had to divvy up between 50 stages, but really none of them get like a whole bunch of shine. And I almost feel like they should have just introduced the choice where you can have the spider or the rhinoceros and kind of decide which would be easier. I mean, it would have been tough, and it probably would have been a lot to juggle for the 90s, but, you know, I mean, it would have given them more shine. I just feel like these characters, you know, had too much personality to them to only actually use them like once or twice, at least from memory, once or twice, so. But the more I think about it, I mean, this is a decent sized game, but it still doesn't overstay its welcome. I mean, I don't think there's too many people that would complain that this game is too long. And that's what I like about Super Nintendo and PS1 games. It's just the fact that these games had, for me, the perfect length. I mean, nowadays games just don't have distinction and wind up being too long, but I mean, I just feel like there's not too many Super Nintendo games I complain about that are too long and such, unless it's like a RPG from, like, you know, the creators of Final Fantasy or something like that. But other than that, and even then, those are good games. I mean, RPGs really kick ass, so I mean, just depending upon your shift, if you want to order pizza, something like that, and you know, the pizza's not going to be here for an hour and a half, especially in COVID times. You know, you can totally chill out to an RPG, and RPGs are actually games that you can eat and play at the same time. You don't have many action sequences. Like this game, I wouldn't be able to eat pizza and do. I'd have to like pause it, and you know, some people like to multitask, so. But yeah. So this little stage, you can hit the ceiling, which I didn't really like. I think they did that on purpose. I mean, if you're not careful, it can kill you there. So these birds really pissed me off. They had the perfect placement for them. I need to mess with Guitar Hero. That's a game. That's definitely a game I enjoy. That's a really stellar PS2 game, but I just haven't. I mean, I used to play it a lot in the past, but I need to go back and mess with it. I need to kind of. I mean, I'm definitely getting back into the PS1. The next game I play after this game is a PS1 game, but I haven't really played games like it for a while. So, I mean, for people who actually discover this and are curious, it's just like, hey, you know. I mean, the PS1 is a very stellar machine, so I do like the controller. I appreciate the DualShock way more than I used to. I mean, I always liked it, but, you know, compared to the controllers I see now, like, I don't know how I feel about I never owned a PS3, and I really haven't played a PS3 many times. I picked up an Xbox 360 instead, but I don't really know the DualShock 3 or the PS4's controller, so last PlayStation machine I really played like that was the PS2, which had a perfect controller. I mean, the DualShock 1 and 2 were awesome. I'm just used to it. I mean, that's ideal. That's what they need to take it back to, and they need to be wired. Like Jackal Goldkick, he did a video back in August about you know, how video games he's getting tired of, and I basically said, like, yeah, one of the things I definitely missed were wired controllers. I mean, 90s and 2000s video games just happen to be like so much better these days. They really have so much distinction. I mean, you basically have to be new school to hate on this kind of game and stuff. You have to really. I mean, I just feel like Donkey Kong Country 2 definitely jumps off the page most of the time. Unless you're just born on, like, you know, like M-rated video games, which is not a problem. That's the thing. I do like the concept of realism too, but I also like, you know, there's just a bunch of stuff. I'll play most games, so I'm going to try to do this bonus stage. I'm not going to do too well in it, and then I'm going to say fuck it, but, you know, this is a pretty long stage, so that's the reason why we didn't get to World 6 in this episode, is because these stages, the thing about the developers of this game is they make these stages longer, and you're like, hey, you know, the earlier stages got completed quicker, but it's like, no, they're actually longer. They're definitely longer than the stages in the first Donkey Kong Country. So, I mean, they just went to town with them. I mean, you will start to notice, like, hey, this stage should have been over by now, but it's not. And I use that as like a crutch, because I'm like, hey, okay, the midway point was like several minutes ago, but it's like, no, you're going for a marathon this time. That's what you have to understand. So basically you can get about 3 webs up at a time before one of them will disappear. So just as long as you're on like the most recent or the second most recent web, you should be fine, but don't stay on them for too long. It's just a technique for people who really struggle with this stage, is just understand the concepts of the spider. You basically want to, I mean, just always stay on your toes, but realize that you don't have to rush like as badly as you think you do. Just try to always have 3 webs so you can get to one. And also understand that when you shoot the webs, you can aim them up and down if you hold up and down on the control pad while you're shooting the webs or the platforms. It helps. It's definitely a technique. I mean, the game doesn't tell you that. And I don't even think it tells you that in the instruction booklet. But, alright, so we'll save that for next time. Subscribe for more fun. Stay tuned for part 11. Have a wonderful night.